Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to have you here today. We are going to be creating some high-end home decor DIYs using dollar store items. I hope you guys find tons of inspiration in today's video. Let's go ahead and get started. Using this house-shaped sign from Dollar Tree, I'm going to remove the sticker, sand all of that excess glue off, as well as use my staple remover to pull that top tab of the house roof off, and then remove that seashell foam sticker. I'm going to use my hammer to nail in those little staples or nail heads that were holding that wood piece on, and then I'm going to sand everything down and nice and smooth. Use my little desktop vacuum cleaner to clean all that debris up, and I have that listed in my Amazon store below if you are interested in one of those. We're using one of Dollar Tree's wood slats, and I held that up in front of the house to make a mark so that I can cut this down evenly with the bottom of the house. I'm using some scrap wood. It measures about 1 inch wide to 1/4 inch deep. I've had this in my pile for a while. I want to add this to the roof line. So I want to cut this down to make sure it's flush with the peak of the roof, and then a little bit of overhang on the end. So that measures about 4¼ inches. And so for the second piece, because it's going to need to extend to the end of the original piece, I need to measure that at 4½ inches because the wood is 1/4 inch deep. I'm using my handheld miter box and saw, and this was very easy to cut, including that wood slat. I thought it was going to be a little bit difficult because it was thick, but it was super easy to cut those off. Then I'm going to sand everything down and nice and smooth, clean all that debris off, and I'm using antique wax made by Waverly, applying this with a brush, and because I didn't have any wet baby wipes left, I just wet a paper towel to go over that, blend it in, and wipe all of the excess wax off. I did this for all 3 pieces on all of the sides. On the back side of our house frame, I'm going to give this 2 coats of Waverly's white chalk paint, allowing it to dry in between coats. Also making sure to get all of those outside edges, including under that roof line. Now, I like to complete my projects and allow them to have a really finished look, so I am going to apply some craft paper to the back side of this house. So if it doesn't bother you that it's not finished, you can just completely skip this part. I'm going to attach that craft paper using a glue stick, and if you get some on the outside, just wipe that excess off, but it will dry clear. I'm making sure to get those outside edges so my paper does not peel up later. Just apply that on there and smooth it out, and then we can flip this over and start adding our wood pieces. The wood slat's going to go on the bottom in the front of the house, making sure it's flush to the outside edges, and I am attaching this using some Gorilla Hot Glue. You could also add a couple of staples or nails in there once your glue sets. Then I'm going to apply the shortest wood piece to the roof first, making sure it's flush to the corner at the top peak of the house, as well as flush to the back side of our house piece because I want that overhang to stick out in the front. Again, I'm going to attach that using the Gorilla Hot Glue, and then I can add that second piece, making sure that it extends onto the first piece. So you'll add a little bit of hot glue to the end of your first piece on there as well as down the roof line, line everything up, and then apply a little bit of pressure to allow that glue to set. This is turning out so pretty. I printed a decal on my Cricut. I know that not everyone has a Cricut, so I have this as a free printable on my website, and the link to my website is in my description box below. This is just a way for me to give back to you guys for being so supportive by subscribing to my channel, watching my videos, and all of your encouraging and beautiful comments that you guys leave me. I appreciate you all so much. And this is just a simple way for me to help give back to you guys. So I applied this decal right to the top part of the sign, and it says This is our happy place. Now I did pull up a little bit of paint when I peeled that transfer tape back, so I had to touch that up, but I love how this project turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of project number 1. For the second project, we're going to use the same house-shaped sign from Dollar Tree, remove that styrofoam sand dollar and sand that down, leave the trim piece on there. I'm going to give this 2 coats of white chalk paint on the entire piece except for that trim. The trim, I'm going to use some black chalk paint and very carefully try to get a nice crisp line on the front of that, as well as paint the top part of the roof in the black chalk paint. So once you finish up, it should look something like this. Then I'm going to use 22 of the tumbling tower pieces from Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue 3 of those side by side to make 1 set of 3. I'm going to do that to make 6 sets. So you'll have 6 sets of 3, and then I'm going to glue 1 set on top of the other, and then glue another set on top of that. So it'll be 9 of those tumbling tower pieces in 1 block. And I'll make 2 sets of those, so 2 sets of 9. Using one of Dollar Tree's wood crates, we're going to take those 4 individual tumbling tower pieces. We're going to be gluing those inside of the crate. You want to make sure that the tumbling tower piece is flush to the bottom of the crate. So you're going to glue it to the bottom as well as that back side. I'm going to put 1 on each corner, and then I'll split the difference for the other 2. So once you have all 4 glued down, you want to make sure they're all flush to the bottom so everything is even at the top. It should look like this. Now make sure you remove all those glue strands, and we're going to give these all a coat of white chalk paint. And I did paint that crate inside and out, including those tumbling tower pieces on the inside. So it should look somewhat like this. I'm using one of Dollar Tree's puzzle pieces just as a guide so that I can trace this out, because I want this to look somewhat like a birdhouse. So I'm just going to trace that out and then use my black chalk paint to fill that in. You could also use a Sharpie, but since I used the chalk paint on the roof line, I wanted the finish to match. Using one of these quart paint stir sticks, these come from Lowe's. This is the exact width of the lines on the crate, so I'm going to use this as a guide to create lines on the birdhouse. So it'll have nice even spacing just like on the crate. And I'm going to do this all the way to the top as well as on the sides. I'll just use a smaller craft stick to go on those sides and draw the lines and make sure that they're even with the lines on the front. I'll do that for both sides. I'm going to take a clean, soft bristled paintbrush and go over each one of the pencil lines that I made. It's going to smudge it and smear it and give it a beautiful distressed look. I'll do this over the entire piece, and then I'm going to take that wood crate and use my pencil to go in between all of the wood slats that are on the front. And I'll also add a little bit to the edging at the top and the bottom and the corners. And then I'll take that paint stick and draw the lines on the side so everything is cohesive and matches. And then I'll take the paintbrush and do the exact same thing we did for the birdhouse and smudge it and give it a beautiful distressed look. Now, because this is pencil marks, they will continue to smudge. So to seal that in, I'm going to use some matte Mod Podge and go over this entire piece so that once that Mod Podge dries, you can't smear those pencil marks anymore. To create a wreath to go around the black circle that we painted for the birdhouse, I'm taking some boxwood greenery and just cutting each of the individual leaves off, and I'm going to place those around in the same direction, overlapping one another using hot glue. So you'll just add a dot of hot glue, and then each leaf will overlap until you go all the way around. Now I do go in and add a second layer on the inside to make it look like a nice full wreath. Now we can attach the birdhouse on top of our tumbling tower pieces by putting glue on the top part of each one of those tumbling tower pieces as well as the back side of our crate. So I'm going to apply that and then set it in there and apply firm pressure to make sure that everything is even and that everything has adhered well. I wanted to add a little something to the front of the crate, so I printed out the word home. I have this as a free printable on my website. The link is in my description box below. I cut that down to size, and then I'll make pencil marks all over the back side of each of the letters, and then use painter's tape to tape this and hold it in place so that I can use my pencil to trace over each one of those letters with firm pressure so that it will transfer onto my project. Now, once you have that transferred over, you can take a Sharpie. I'm going to use an extra fine tipped Sharpie and go over each one of these letters and fill it in. And then I'll go back over it a couple of times until I get it to the thickness that I want. There are two ways you can decorate this. You can put your 2 blocks in the bottom. I'm not going to glue them down. I'm just going to set them in there. And you can use 2 of Dollar Tree's small terracotta pots. You could put herbs in those or artificial flowers, but those blocks are going to give it the perfect height so that you'll be able to see it over that crate. Another way that you could decorate this instead of the terracotta pots and the blocks is just to put whatever type of greenery you want inside of the crate. Either way, I love how this project turned out, and I hope you like it too. If you're enjoying today's projects and you haven't done so already, I would love for you to become part of our community by clicking on that subscribe button. I would also love for you to visit me on all my other social media accounts. All those links are in my description box below. Okay, let's get started on project number 3. For this project, I'm using 3 of these metal pails from Dollar General. They were $1 a piece. I bought these last year, so hopefully they'll be carrying them again this year. I'm also using a drill and drill bit. Now, if you do not feel comfortable doing that, another possibility would be to use one of these metal pails from Dollar Tree that already has the holes pre-drilled in it with the handles. They're about the same size as these. You could paint them, spray paint them, make them whatever color you like. I started off by drilling 2 holes in the back of the black one above the other, and then I'm going to drill 2 holes in the silver and white one side by side. Now just be very careful if you choose to recreate this project that you do not cut yourself because these are metal pails. I'm using one of Dollar Tree's bicycle wheel wreath forms as well as some zip ties because I'm using the smaller zip ties. I'm going to attach 2 together so I can feed that through the 2 holes in the black pail and attach this to that spoke at the bottom. I'm going to wrap it around that spoke and pull it pretty tightly and add a couple more zip ties. Now in the process of doing this, my spoke popped off, but we're going to fix that later on and hopefully you won't have this problem. But as you can see here, it just popped off. So I decided to add 2 more holes to the silver and the white pail so that I would be able to add 2 zip ties. So I'm going to feed that through the bottom and up through the top. And I'll do the exact same thing on the white pail. So just to give it a little more security when I add it to those spokes on the wreath form. So once you have those pulled tight, you can attach these to the back side of your wreath form. So you see the clamp there because I'm holding that spoke in place, and I'll fix that later on in the project. Now once I had these pulled tight, they're still going to wobble up and down. So I decided I needed to go in and add another hole at the top so that I would be able to zip tie that to the spoke right above the pail. So I drilled 1 hole in the silver one and then 1 hole in the white one. Again, just be super careful not to cut yourself. I'm going to zip tie that to the spoke right above it and pull that in nice and tight. And then now my silver and white pail are nice and secured to the wreath form. Now I did go back in and add another zip tie on the back side to pull those two together just to give it some added security. For the bottom pail, I am going to add a hole on each side so that I could zip tie that to the outside spokes, again giving that some more stability. Then I did have to bend my spoke down just a little bit, but hopefully yours won't break so you won't have to worry about this. I added some E6000 and clamped that in place until that E6000 dried. I wanted to add a little something to the front, so I'm using one of these wooden half-inch candle cups. You can find those at Hobby Lobby. I painted it with the black chalk paint and then applied it to the front of the spoke using some hot glue. Now you can decorate it with whatever florals you like. I absolutely love how this project turned out, and I really hope you guys like it too. For our final project, we're using 3 of these house-shaped decor pieces. The one in the center came from Family Dollar at Christmas time for $1, and the other 2 came from Dollar General for $1.50. I'm going to remove that metal piece at the top using a pair of pliers, and then I'm going to remove the pieces from the front. So I originally wanted to remove the trim, but then I realized this is actually MDF with just a thin piece of wood on top, and I broke it, so I decided not to remove the trim. I will glue that back on later. I'm going to remove all the other pieces from the other 2 signs, but do keep that rectangular piece that was on the smaller sign. We're going to use that later on. I made sure to sand over all the pieces to get them smooth and remove that debris. And the smaller sign, I'm going to give 2 coats of white chalk paint. Don't forget to get those sides and the bottom. And one of the larger signs, I am going to give that a coat of white chalk paint, but I'm going to go over top of that in just a minute. For the third sign, I am going to give this 2 coats of some beautiful moss green chalk paint. Don't forget to get the inside of those hearts, and I'm going to allow that to dry. Now the first one that we painted white, if you've watched my channel for a while, then you've seen me use this technique where I add antique wax and then use a wet wipe or a wet paper towel to kind of blend that in and go in one direction to give it a faux wood grain look. So this is the colors that I like to use: black, white, wood, greens, but please feel free to paint yours whatever colors you like or whatever colors your home decor is. Don't forget to get those outside edges so everything looks nice and clean and cohesive. I'm going to set that to the side and let those dry. And I'm using 3 of these command hooks. They're clear plastic backings and these silver hooks. I wanted mine to be black, so I painted those with 2 coats of black chalk paint. And I also painted all 3 roofs on the houses in black chalk paint. So this is how they look now that everything has dried. Because this is chalk paint, I'm going to go over those hooks with a layer of Mod Podge to seal that in and keep that paint from chipping off. Now once those have dried, we're going to attach these houses together. I'm using a straight edge so I can make sure everything at the bottom stays in line. The one in the center has a lip at the bottom, so I'm going to rest that onto the bottom 2 of the other signs, and then the roofs will touch at the top. So you don't really need to go all the way across the bottom with hot glue. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I added that to the bottom as well as the roof. I do recommend that you add some E6000, something with a more permanent, stronger hold than just hot glue. Then I decided to go back in and add more hot glue to the back to make sure everything is secure. And to give it a nice finished look, you could always paint the back white. Now, I'm not going to put the sticky pieces on these command strips because I'm not going to reuse them. I want them to stay there permanently. So I'm going to hot glue each one of those at the bottom edge in the center of each one of the houses. Then I've created a decal. Again, I'll have this as a free printable on my website in my description box below. To place that on the rectangular piece that we originally took off of the smaller house, then I can hot glue this back into place at the center towards the top, And you can hang these up with some of the picture hanger command strips and place those on the back of the houses. I love how this project turned out. I hope you guys like it too. I hope you found tons of inspiration in today's video. And if you have a favorite, please let me know in the comments section down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.